welcome to Transatlantic Watch Party, our TikTok live / podcast. I am Cara, and this is
Dan.
Very good. And we do this every Sunday, and we chat about an episode of TV that we have just watched. And this week it is Pan Am episode 3. Ich bin ein Berliner.
I say Berliner.
Yeah, apologies to all German people. I've pronounced that terribly, but yeah. I thought this was a cracking episode. I'm just going to get straight into it because I thought this was a really good episode.
Yeah, I was going to say it just keeps getting better. Every episode just keeps getting better in this series. Like I'm now sad that there's only 11 episodes left that we get to watch, and that's it. And then we won't ever be able to watch. I guess we can rewatch it, but that's it. Like it seems like it's really good. It's very, very engaging. Lots of stuff going on with all these characters. Well, not maybe so much with some of the characters. I make a note of some of them are not as well developed as others, but still, yeah, this was great. I loved it. This is this is my jam. It's Cold War. It's the 60s, which I loved. It's Kennedy, which I loved. I've been obsessed with all of these things at some point in my life and done deep dives into them.
Sure. That's yeah. I saw exactly the same thing. This was the episode where I was like, I can't believe that we only get 11 more of these. What were they on? This is really good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I just thought it 2 out of the 3 plots I thought were absolutely terrific. I know they had to give like a lighter plot to somebody, and so Maggie got her desperately running around trying to meet Kennedy plot.
I don't even think that was a lighter plot because like it was showing how obsessed people were with him at the time. And I think like it just kind of captured this, like she was not alone in that obsession of wanting to meet him. So there's many, many people, and she was just kind of, I think, representing many, many women in the US at the time who wanted to meet him. And anyway, we'll get to it.
Yeah, but just in terms of, it definitely felt lighter than it was a lighter touch, shall we say?
Sure.
on a very real issue than what poor Colette was going through. And I have told you before, she is my favorite, so she is still my favorite. So I cried a lot during this episode, which I mean, I've got to admit, I always enjoy. I like it. I like crying at sad films and TV and music. It's great. So yes. So I didn't take as many notes as usual because I was genuinely captivated for a lot of it.
Can I tell you, I wasn't going to take notes until we got to a certain line, and I thought, okay, I got to start taking notes. And that was when Maggie's trying to chat up the journalists on the plane. So the premise of the episode is that the plane has been commissioned by the press corps to follow the president to Berlin. He's going to Berlin for the first time since the Berlin Wall came up. And so these guys, they've got a bunch of reporters on. And so the line, when she's trying to talk up the reporters because she wants to get into the press area and get closer to Kennedy, Maggie's trying to talk them up. And one of the guys says, numbers mean nothing, something along those lines, where he talks about how they say there's this many people going. He's like, numbers mean nothing. And he's right. That is absolutely right. He is 100% true. It continues to be true. When you hear like numbers reported on an event, they are almost always incorrect and complete bullshit. And they don't really mean anything anyway.
Yeah, I like that she was like, fine, I'll give you a number, 100,002. Like very, very specific. And she was like, I'm not very optimistic. Yeah, I thought that was good. So the opening of the episode was not Margot. She did one film where she played Margot. Cara, get over it. Kate instead. Kate. Mm-hmm. She was on the subway and her handler arrived and essentially sort of shouted some German at her, and then she had to remember it. And Jesus, I would need him to write that down.
I think it was in the thing he gave her. I hope it was in the package he gave her. Because I just thought it was funny. Like they start with this subterfuge of like, they're pretending not to know each other again. Like we've already seen them do this in another situation. And then she's going along with it until he gets to that part. She's like, what? And he's like, what the fuck? Here's the thing. He's like, here, like, so I think all the directions were in that package, but he kind of dispenses with all that at some places. Just do the thing I'm trying to get you to do. Right? They don't try and make it a secret anymore. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's like, let's just give up on that. I'm just gonna tell you some German, and tell you to say it better when you're in Germany. And then I sort of thought that would be the credits. I thought that was the cold open, and then we would get the Pan Am symbol. But actually, the Pan Am symbol didn't come in for ages.
Yeah,
We had like three scenes, and I was surprised. I wrote it down. I was like, that was a long time before the credits started.
I don't know if it was common for the time, but it is common enough that I've noticed it more than once, where some shows will go like 20 minutes. A 20-minute cold open or whatever, right? Where they just go 20 minutes with the opening scene because they don't want to break the concentration. For a lot of network shows, it's because they want to keep you through to that first commercial break. So that first 20 minutes, they're really trying to hook in the viewer. And it was just a long open is what it was. And so they decided, I think what they do when they do that kind of thing in shows is they try and pick the best moment to just show, because the opening is just the Pan Am symbol and that's it. Like there's no actual song or anything. There's no real opening, which was also a bit of a trend at the time as well. Short openings were a thing when they were just like super short and that was it.
Yeah, I like that because it ties it in with 911, because 911 doesn't have an opening credits. It just goes, it just has a funny little beep, 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 beep sound and the thing that says 911, and then that's it.
So well. Good job. You did it so well. All right.
Do you know, I was trying to think of what the noise was, and all I could think of was the internet dial-up sound. That ba-dum, ba-dum, ba. That's like, it's not that. That's not the noise they use.
So we're going to, sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, we get the date, which probably meant more to you than me, June the 25th, 1963. Obviously, I knew what was happening because they told us.
Yeah, and we're less than 6 months away from the Kennedy assassination. So when he says the line, "Oh, you're going to vote for Kennedy in '64," I'm like, you won't get the chance to vote for Kennedy in '64. So that rang, caught my attention. But they are here's the thing. Like, I know a lot about kind of Kennedy and his presidency and the kind of stuff that happened. I didn't know a lot about this particular visit to Germany or anything like that. Like, I just watched a documentary about the Cold War a little while ago, so I was kind of aware of the importance. And one thing I learned about Berlin that I didn't know as a child who grew up in this era, like I grew up aware of East and West Berlin when I was a kid, and in East and West Germany, but I thought it was always split down the middle. I always had this mental image as a kid of like the country of Germany just split down the middle because East and West, right? But the city of Berlin is in East Germany, right? Yeah. That's what I didn't understand. So the city of Berlin is in East Germany. So that itself was split in half, and half that city was given to the West. And then there was like a single train line that ran out of that city into West Germany. That was the only way in and out of the city. And I guess they started flying people in the 60s. But that was really weird for West Germany, for people to be kind of sitting there surrounded by like communism on all sides and this Russia occupied territory. It was really very strange.
Because the woman that we meet later in the episode, when Kate is telling her to get out of to go back to West Germany, she's like, it was surrounded by East Germany, and it's very geographically bizarre. Yes. But so we're in the airport and the flights are coming up, and this is when we learn that we know from Kate, but everyone's going on the plane to Berlin because Colette looks worried about it. And it's one of those things that until you think about it, it doesn't cross your mind. And I felt very stupid for not having thought about it. But this was a time when the Second World War wasn't that long ago, and so people were still dealing with the ramifications of what they themselves had gone through. Because to me, it's so far removed that, and I'm one of those. I didn't even have grandparents who fought in it because my grandpa in Scotland was an electrician and he was necessary to not fight. He stayed. And my other grandfather, my Welsh grandfather, he was a conscientious objector. So I don't even have any of those family stories. My grandmother, my Scottish, both of my grandmothers were Scottish, but she was an ambulance driver in the so that was the only thing. But I didn't have anyone like on the front lines to hear stories from. So I've always felt relatively removed from that. And to see this story play out of people who, What did your family do during the war? To ask a German person that, I would never dream of it these days, you know.
I mean, now we're enough that you could probably have that conversation with somebody from Germany just fine, because we're now far enough removed from it. But at this time, this is less than 20 years after the end of the war, and Colette has grown up. She spent a good chunk of her childhood in German occupied France. Like, it was like 4 or 5 years that they were there.
When I sent you a message about this episode, I was like, it was a Googleable episode. I had to keep Googling things. And yes, the German occupation of France was for 4 years. So she was 3 when they invaded, and she was 7 or 8 when they left.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that I didn't know. So I was like, and I hadn't thought about the occupation of France as a whole, because I think of them marching into Paris, but you know, like I haven't come to grips with all of that.
So what's the comment here from Auntie? Auntie says, as someone who was married to a German, don't ask what their families did in the war.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Faulty Towers. It always reminds me of Faulty Towers. Like, the Germans, like, don't mention the war. Whatever he's.
Don't mention the war. Like, it's terrible. Yeah.
Anyway, oh man. Yeah.
And so we were sort of focusing on Colette for the moment, and she sees Dean, the captain, and he, and they mention their brief moment of dancing in the streets of Paris together. And she says, it was a moment, Captain, a nice moment, but that was all. So there's, she's like, she's putting herself into the situation of, I don't mind if this doesn't go anywhere. Like, I have no expectations of you. We were both a little bit tipsy. It's fine.
Well, it didn't seem like it went too far, right? They were just like dancing and that was it. They didn't accidentally have sex.
And I don't think they insinuated that anything else
Okay.
had happened. He did kiss her hand. But this is the 60s. I think even then, people had moved on from that being a bit shocking. And then we get on the plane and we meet. This is when we find out that Maggie is desperate to meet Kennedy. Which, to be fair, I would have been, So, yeah, I get it.
What really struck me about this episode is how much of a worldwide celebrity he was. The people in Germany were this excited to see him. I remember recently I think it might have been the anniversary of his visit to Ireland. And when he went to Ireland, they went crazy for him, mostly because his family was Irish, but also because he was just a famous, handsome person that, I'm not going to say. That was part of his charm, right? Is that he was this kind of young, handsome president and had all this promise. And people wanted to see him in person. They really wanted to see him, right? It was just this, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
I don't think it's that hard because I've seen pictures of him, and so I get it. Yeah, I think at that time he was like a proper celebrity. He wasn't just like the first year of
global celebrity. Sorry, this first year of global celebrities in the 60s, because you've got the Beatles as well, global celebrities. You've got all these famous people. Kind of television is connecting the world, right? So everybody is watching TV, and so these people are becoming famous overnight. So it's very interesting, and the response, everyone's so excited to see him when they're down there trying to get to the whatever the square where he's speaking. So we have them now. What's going on? So Maggie's trying to get the journalist to sneak her in, and she drags Laura along with her. Actually, they all go with her, don't they?
That's the party that happens later.
Okay.
Here she's trying to get into the press area.
Right.
Because she just wants to shake his hand. So she just wants to be in his vicinity so that she can shake his hand. Yeah. And so she's hitting up each individual. We only see her talk to 2, but she's hitting up individual journalists, looking them up on the manifest and going what do I know about them? Who, so she tries it with a guy, a very serious guy called George Manchester. And he is not having any of it. And then we hear the noise of a typewriter, and I was like, oh, it's the Village Voice. And I don't know why I immediately thought, the guy from the Village Voice would have a typewriter on the plane. But, I watched Mrs. Maisel, and I think that sort of noise of typewriters in the office really, really struck a chord. And he was this episode's, hey, it's that guy. Because I know him from Chicago Med. So.
Okay. It's technically, hey, it's that guy for me was David Harbour, because I know we've already had him, but
Every episode that he did. Yeah. Oh, it's a surprise. He's English. So yes, so she wants to, and he immediately understands what she's trying to do, and he's very apologetic, and he's very nice, and he's very attractive. And so she's like, what if I bring more, attractive Pan Am stewardesses? We'll show you around Berlin. And she chooses Laura to go, who has never been to Berlin before. So
right, yeah.
That's a great choice. And then Laura says to Kate, and they do one of these things that stresses me out, and I understand that's a me problem. I understand why in scripts they don't specify things like when people say, let's meet up, they don't say when and where, because that's a waste of everyone's time. But I hate it because I need to know when and where.
That's...
I get really stressed out.
No, but it was okay. She just said, let's go. We're going to go to the speech later, go watch the speech. She said, yes, for sure. And then that completely made sense to me because she did want to see the speech. And Kate is caught up in her mission. She's got to go to the bookstore and buy the book. But when she does, she doesn't even get into the bookstore. So this girl pulls up beside the thing and honks at her and yells at her in German and then tells her to get in the car and said, whatever. It's the person who's supposed to drop off the book at the store.
Yeah.
And so she gets into the car with her and they drive off because this is the other courier from the other side of the deal that she's supposed to be part of, right? And so what was the reason? Do you remember the reason that she couldn't drop off the book? Was their cover blown or something like that? The secret police were there?
Secret police knew who she was. Yeah. So they know what she looks like.
And they know her car.
Yes, but that's what Kate figures out. This girl, the other girl, whose name I can't remember, she hasn't realized that. It's Kate that goes, they know who you are. So they know your car, so we have to just abandon it in the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street, doors wide open, very conspicuously. Go park it somewhere. Park it somewhere hidden. Make them look for it. What are you doing? It was so weird.
It's very bad. But then, of course, they have their little discussion when they're huddling in a doorway that they're both just couriers. This is the German girl's third job, and it's Kate's second. So they are absolutely unprepared. And also Kate is panicking because she's just had the meeting with Bridget the episode before, which was like, if you don't stick to your instructions letter by letter, they're gonna bin you, and they're gonna send you off and you have to pretend that you're from Kansas City. So she's just immediately terrified. And so was I. It was a very stressful episode.
Yeah, I agree.
But we've skipped a bit because before we skipped to 24 hours after, and they did that thing where we saw the outcome of bad things having happened. Like Colette and it was Colette and Dean met on the staircase up to the airplane, and she was like, I'm really sorry for the drinking and the singing, and I was like, oh, she embarrassed him at a party, but they were loud and drunk together. I did not know what it actually was devastating. So yes, and then we flipped back to 12 hours earlier, and they're on the street with Mike, the journalist. So
we also had in that little flash Laura making excuses for Maggie, saying that she had stomach problems or she was making up a bunch of excuses. And then she says it was bratwurst. I think it was bratwurst.
Yes. And we find out later that because Maggie was like, make up something German. And obviously all she could think of was bratwurst. And she was like,
that was such a well-structured joke just because it took all the way around. You had to remember back to the beginning. Oh my God, that is why she said bratwurst. That is hilarious. I really like that. That was great.
Yeah. It's a very good callback. But we, she was like, oh, she's got a stomach ache, a headache. And then it was like, I think it was something that just came on suddenly. I think she had something funny. And they were like, I thought you said she had a headache. And I'm like, to be fair, if you had food poisoning, you kind of get everything. So
that's fair.
Seems reasonable.
So anyway, where are we in the story here? We
and So we go back. Kate was going off script.
Oh, yeah.
And then I skipped a lot of stuff before I wrote anything else down. I was just like this. No! Like, the whole time.
Well, she calls David Harbour. He brings the girl back to her hotel room and she calls David Harbour. And now I feel, again, it was very weird for them having this open conversation about this on an open phone line. Like they can't be they're in the hotel. It can't be tapped. They're not very good spies, I don't think, in a lot of ways.
They're not spies, they're couriers.
Well, whatever, but he's a spy. He is a spy, and he's trying to handle her, and he's just telling her to forget it, saying, no, cut her loose. This is like a 15-year-old kid could do this job. We don't need her. Let her go. And this is the way it is. And she's like, I can't do that. This girl is like, she's just like me. Like, I don't want someone to be mean to me. What if this is her the next time around?
And that was a brilliant, I mean, logistics of calling on an open line aside, the fact that she was on that phone conversation and realized how unimportant she is, just how disposable she is. That's a really big thing to realize. Like, Bridget was kind of told her, but she now knows that she could die. I don't think that had really hit her before. And they'll just replace her with somebody else. And I thought that was great. And we had bonus David Harbour, which is always good. And then
thing.
Yes, Karen.
I was going to say, we had the thing where they were going to see Kennedy speak, and they're rushing through the crowd. They run into some nice Germans who said they're American and bring them along with them. And also Ted is with them. And so Ted is like kind of like leading the way. They compare him to Gene Kelly and all this stuff. So like, I guess
because he's on the lamppost, and they say, "You look like Gene Kelly," and Laura says, "Thank God it isn't raining." And I don't remember who it was. I think it was Kate who said, "Thank God he isn't singing." I thought that was a good little moment. And then they meet the Germans who are like, "Oh, are you Americans? We love Americans. Come with us." And I was like, "They're being kidnapped."
No. There are people there who really do love Americans. I think people who wish that, or no, these are like, this is West Germany, right? So they would love them for sure.
So they took them into the apartment building.
And then that's where Colette has kind of like a trauma flashback. Like, she remembers something about running up and down stairs in a building like that. As a child, she probably remembers fleeing or something, or hiding from Germans. And she has some real like trauma. Like, she's just like, she can't go. She has to stop. Just to like take a minute. Everyone else is kind of rushing ahead to watch. And then
the people, she's looking at the people and they keep turning into soldiers.
Yeah.
And she has we have just seen her have a conversation with Dean where he twigs, and he'd said to her, "How old were you when they occupied France?" And she was like, "I was 3," because she says something about not having a family.
Yeah.
And she's sort of like lets it go. She's like, "I didn't suffer any more than anyone else. We all lost people, But yeah, so as she's going up the stairs, she's having like flashbacks. And I just wrote down, "Oh, Colette," because just heartbreaking. And then they get into the apartment and they have a view over the square where Kennedy is talking. And Ted and Laura held hands, and I wrote down Ted and Laura, and then immediately had to write down, "Oh no," to Ted and Laura, because he tried to kiss her and she was like, "No."
Well, he blew it, man. What are you doing? Just enjoy the moment, hold her hand, watch the speech. Why do you have to go in for the kiss? You don't, like, that's not the right moment for that. That was just a bad call on his part.
Yeah, Ted is not covering himself in glory, because in the first episode he's a bit of a dick about Dean being captain, and that's fine. He's like, "I can't call you captain, I shall call you captain in other languages." And then in the second episode, he does not understand what Maggie's been through with the guy who sexually assaulted her. And then in this episode, he like just goes in for the kill with like no build up. And I'm like, Ted, back up, Jesus. Stop jumping in feet first, man.
Yeah, no, he needs to learn some lessons here, I think.
Yeah. And then we get the situation where, and I don't know why, like, Maggie gets them to sort of agree to all come to the party that she thinks that they can talk their way into, that Kennedy's going to be at.
Right. Because he likes
Because
stewardesses.
he likes stewardesses, and they are stewardesses. And Kate suggests that they wear their uniform. I don't know whether Kate had fully thought that through, because then she's like, oh shit, I have to go. And now I don't have a uniform, because she gives her uniform to the German courier in order to get her into the American mission, the American embassy, that is not an embassy, so that she can sort of go in and defect.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow Laura happens to have an entire whole, because she just says, do you have another jacket? So whether she had half of another outfit, I don't know.
She had a spare skirt. I don't know.
Yeah, she had a skirt and a shirt. She didn't have a hat. She worked the entire plane ride back to New York without a hat, which I thought was despicable. And
they also had no supervisor, because their supervisor stayed behind to go meet Kennedy. So
I think everyone was drunk and nobody cared, but still, I mean, that flight was out of control. And so she dresses the German girl up and says, oh, she's from the Berlin office or whatever, and she should come to the party with us. Oh, how convenient. And that's when we get the point where they arrive at the party, and Maggie's so desperate to get in, and she discovers that this German girl, her family used to deliver bread there when it was an office for the Luftwaffe. And so Maggie's really excited, because this girl might know a back entrance that they can get in through.
They never take advantage of it, by the way. They don't. I'm like, oh, this will be fun. They'll go sneaking through the building. I'm like, no, they're not going to do that. They don't do that. And but then Colette is upset because she realized that this person is like, her parents were Nazis, basically, is what,
or assisted the Nazis, in any case. And so we get the Colette in the party getting more and more tipsy. I mean, very briefly, we don't see her, it doesn't build up over a long time, but I thought it was interesting. Oh no, she said that at the end. And she goes to the pianist and says something, and she sings the German national anthem, which at that time was not the German national anthem anymore.
Oh.
Because that's the other thing I was Googling, because I was like, they don't sing that anymore. They have different lyrics.
The same tune?
They sing them to the same tune.
But
and I think it was like, there was a different, after the Second World War, they got rid of it, because it had 3 stanzas, and the first stanza was Deutschland, Deutschland, über alles, which is Germany, Germany above all, above everyone else, and people were like, maybe we shouldn't. Ante says, yes, one verse is now illegal to sing, so you can't sing that first verse. But she obviously learned that when she was at school. They might have sung that, like Americans do the Pledge of Allegiance. Very weird thing, I always think. And she sang, and it was shocking. It was a shocking moment. Like, I think that I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and she did it beautifully. I think she's a fantastic actress.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was such a brilliant moment. And of course, that's the callback to when she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry for the drinking and the singing," and I'd thought it was going to be some jovial, they drunk together and they'd embarrassed themselves and Pan Am in front of all these important people. But no, it wasn't. It was that she'd stuck it to the Germans.
Now, I maybe miss this point. Going back, the way they actually got into the party was because Dean was in there already.
Yes.
Right? Dean, we're with him. Boom, they're in. How did Dean get in there?
Dean was there because he had to shake hands, with the German, like the important German people, the head of aviation and stuff, because that Pan Am wanted to extend their, whatever, like their work in Germany. So he was there to shake hands and hobnob and be genial and, suave and sophisticated. And then, he introduces this French girl to them and she's like, yeah, fuck you.
Well, he's like, your German's very good. And she's like, yeah, I was forced to learn it as a child. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing that's happening at the party is that Kate is helping the German girl defect. So we get George Manchester again, who was the very important journalist, very serious man. And she's like, he knows everyone. I can't go with you. You just have to walk up to him and say, I am from East Germany. I am an asset. I'm an East German asset and I want to defect. And you see her walk over. You don't hear their conversation, but then he leads her and introduces her to another man. So you kind of get the impression that Kate has succeeded in her own personal task. And then David Harbour is at the party. So did he fly in? How did he do that?
He must have flown in. He must have, right? As soon as he got off the phone with her and told her to forget about it, he got on a plane and got down there. That's the only way.
Yeah, so I was mind blown that he made it. And he says to her, "You can't do that. You have to. We're telling you what to do, and you have to do that." And she says to him, "So you're saying to just follow orders?" And he said, "Yes." And she says, "You're actually saying that here," which I thought was a really good, nice one, Kate. Well done.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
And then we get back through to Maggie. We get them going back onto that's kind of the end of the party, and we get Maggie running after the motorcade because Kennedy has just left, and so she's absolutely devastated. And she's barging past people and pulling her shoes off, and she shoves her shoes at the guy who wouldn't let them in at the beginning. All these! She's running over the grass trying to get after Kennedy. And that's why I say that was the light-hearted, bit of the episode. Because everything else was terrifying spy stuff and crying Colette. So, running after Kennedy seemed quite fun after that.
Yeah.
And so we find out how she got to the point that we had seen earlier in the show when it was 24 hours later, where she is standing on the tarmac looking at Air Force One and very teary-eyed and emotional. And it's because she absolutely astonishing. She turns up, she makes up, and I don't even know if it's a lie. She says this thing, I mean, I'm sure it is, but she says this thing about I worked the most hours on the Kennedy campaign. And it wouldn't surprise me if she did volunteer, but she wouldn't have worked the most hours and stuff. She makes up this story. The security guard is you can't be here. I'm sorry that you missed him last time, but you can't be here. She's like, but I have cigars. And I'm like, what security guard isn't going to immediately be like, that's a bomb?
Well, yes, and that's why is that the thing? It's very clear that these guys think there's only two things Kennedy cares about. That's women and cigars or whatever, right? They'll let the hot stewardesses in and you can give them cigars and that's it.
So absolutely, absolutely bizarre that they wouldn't immediately go, this is sus.
Even that they were poisoned cigars or something like that.
And I was the whole way through, of course, I was thinking, I wonder how they're going to show Kennedy. Because that's always the thing, isn't it? I watched the, I think it's called Parkland, which is a film about the hospital where both Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald were taken after the assassination and after Lee Harvey Oswald. And I think Lee Harvey Oswald was there. And the whole time I was like, what? How are they gonna? And it was just real close-ups of a bit of his hair or something. They never showed him. And so I was waiting to see how they were going to do this reveal of Kennedy. Right. And then they just had him silhouetted in the door of the airplane, holding the cigars and like waving at her. So she still didn't get to shake his hand.
I would be so disappointed. She seemed happy in the moment. She's like, oh my God, you saw me. And she's excited in that second, but like, come on. Why wouldn't you at least get her up to the stairs to shake his hand, you know?
Yeah. Let her take the exploding cigars to him herself.
Right. That's right.
You know? So that was and then we get Ted again. Trying to make it up to Laura and still trying to like weasel his way in. And he says, let me take you to breakfast and apologize. And she's like, good night, Ted, which I really appreciated. And then he came back and said the thing. You know, you're different from other girls. Oh, shut up, Ted.
What does that mean?
It's a way of playing women off against each other, you know, like, oh, you're smart or you're funny and you're not, you know, you're not vapid like other women. And I mean, to be fair, Ted was the one who was saying in the first episode, this is a new breed of woman. You know, these are like the flight attendants they're world travelers and they, you know, they want to explore and they want to discover things. And they're having a whole different life than the women before them have. So that might be a little callback to that, but it's just a thing that people say and that girls say before they realise what it's trying to get them to do. Like, well, I'm not like other girls. And you're like, yeah, because the girls are not all one thing. So nobody's like other girls because we're all different. Yeah. But yes, it's just him trying to be like, you know, you're different. You're better. I'd treat you better than I would other women because...
Well, see, that's, I think, what he's trying to get at. I think what he was trying to say was that I'm not going to treat you the way I treat other women, which is to say I'm not just trying to sleep with you. I think that's what he was trying to say in that moment. Because he's saying, oh, let's go for breakfast. And she's assuming we're going to spend the evening together, then go for breakfast kind of thing. Like, that's what he's assuming. No, he doesn't want that. He's telling her she's different. He wants to get to know her first.
Yeah. You're different, and therefore I will be a different man. Like, just get it together, Ted. Just.
One of the things I was going to say is that Ted is one of the characters that has not been very well developed so far, although we're only 3 episodes in. And I think the next episode is a Ted episode. I believe that I accidentally read the description of the next one before I turned it off. And I think it's the Ted-centric episode. So I'm kind of excited about that because he was a test pilot. His backstory is that he was a test pilot. So that's kind of cool. So
that is cool. I don't want to think Ted's cool. That's going to ruin everything for me.
Well,
he's like the villain at the moment for me.
He's a really bad test pilot. Maybe he failed out of the test pilot program, and that's why he's applying for Pan Am, right? I don't know.
Maybe he sexually harassed so many people that even in the 60s they were like, Ted, this is too much. We're going to have to let you go, man. We'll put you on Pan Am. Those stewardesses are used to it. Don't worry about it. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But I thought this was a cracking episode.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, very pleased that we are watching this series in general. Well, this half a series.
Yeah, and I at the end of it, I thought, okay, now again, we have the something German bratwurst. I love that callback. And I wrote, that's it, a wave. I was so disappointed that's all she gets is a wave. But then at the very end, I thought it's a good show. You know, it's a good show when you can clearly remember what all the characters' motivations were at the end, right? And you get to know these characters more and more, and they build on it. And so they've done a good job so far with Maggie. I thought we learned a lot more about her, heard a bit of her backstory. I was a little surprised when she's talking to the Village Voice guy, and he's like, what's my article going to be about? And she's like, Kennedy's not knocking down the wall. I thought she was getting a little more political there because clearly her background is kind of bohemian. Like you saw her in that New York apartment with that guy who's typing away, and the Village Voice is probably down. I got the feeling she lived in Greenwich Village. Like that's kind of where that is. So I thought there'd be more to that.
Yeah, because Laura said, "Oh, that you don't think that though, do you?" And she was like, "Yeah, but the readers of the Village Voice think that." And you're like, "I kind of got the impression you would think that." You know, I don't know which part she was lying about there. Because the first 2 episodes, it's been established that she is political and she is a feminist and she is a rebel. So this episode felt, not that being political means that you're not going to be like fawning over Jack Kennedy, but it seemed a tad out of character of what I would have expected her to be like.
But she also said, I can be whatever I need to be. That was a big line for her in this episode, where she's like doing whatever she needs to do to get the job done. So she's like very determined and single-minded in some ways, right? To do whatever needs to be done.
She can be whatever she needs to be. Is she also a spy? Damn, is everyone a spy?
Hope not. No, I think that's because there was too much chance to her being on that first flight. She wasn't supposed to be there, right? There was that.
Yeah, but they didn't need her there because she's already clearly a very well-established spy. She managed to get those cigars to Kennedy. She's a genius.
I don't know how she's going to possibly be. She can be grounded after not showing up for her return flight home. Like she's got to be, and then she mouthed off to the weigh-in lady before they left. Like that was the last one. Never mind. That was just still too much. She's going to be like suspended again. Anyway,
this was the first episode where we didn't get a weigh-in, so that was quite nice.
There we go. And of course we have Colette, who's traumatized from the war and dealing with her past trauma. And I like the way they brought her to a close at the end with her talking to Kate about it and saying it came here to forgive.
Yes.
Right. She came here because she wanted to close this. She can't. She still hates them. Yeah. Right. She doesn't want to forgive.
That was the thing I thought about earlier, was the line that she said, your president gives one speech and all the shame is removed. I think they deserve some shame. And I thought that whole thing was magnificently done. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. And then, of course, you got Kate helping that fellow courier out. And she got her to go back. And then she got in trouble from David Harbour. We already talked about that. Laura really didn't do much other than just be enthusiastic about being in Berlin. Like, did she have any other thing to do in this?
No, other than the little Ted moment, there wasn't really much Laura. Which is, she's had her moments. In the first episode, we got like 3 lines out of Maggie, so
Right, yeah. Kate and Laura were kind of the focus of the first 2 episodes, so like she did kind of take a back seat. But Dean, we still didn't learn much about Dean other than he still likes Colette. It's very clear that he likes Colette, and then Ted likes Laura. That's all I wrote about for Ted. These guys are just defined by the women they like right now, but I think we're going to learn more about them as we go. Again, they'll probably have at least one Dean-centric episode. And we'll learn a little bit more about him. I don't know. I'll see.
I mean, yes, I feel like we learned about Dean in the first episode, but really all we learned about Dean was his attachment to Bridget. So, we don't know Dean's background.
Don't really know much about where he was before this.
Yeah, like what he was doing before he got promoted to captain and stuff, because, of course, that was the first episode, and you'd have thought we'd have found something out about that now, Maybe they were waiting for episode 15 for that, and we're never going to know.
They never got it.
Never gonna know. Yeah, so that was Pan Am episode 3.
Really good episode.
And as is my weekly question, what else have you been watching this week, Dan?
I have been gearing up on the Christmas movies, as you probably have seen from my posts on TikTok. I watched Red 1.
Yes, and you were much more positive about that than anyone else I've seen. So now I'm like, I might watch that.
And maybe it's just about your attitude. Maybe I don't know what it was, but I'm like, okay, and that made me laugh. I'm like, all right, this isn't too bad. And I think it all like sometimes you just see an actor that you really like, and that's enough to like make you in a good mood. And so early on in this movie, there's an actor. Have you ever seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Not all of it. Like I've seen like half of the first series. I really need to watch the rest of it.
Well, you might know the character. He's not a regular. He's a regular, but not on every episode. He's Captain Holt's husband. So Captain Holt is gay. He's married, and his husband is played by, I don't know the name of the actor.
He's in The Good Place.
He's also in The Good Place. I think he's good friends with that creator.
Yeah, he's in The Man Inside, The Man on the Inside as well. He plays a small part in that.
So you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
so he's in an early episode. He plays the father of the boy or the girl or something. There's a scene early on. I think it's Chris Evans is a little boy, and it's about him like doubting the existence of Santa Claus, and he's sitting there explaining that dad is sitting there explaining that he comes every day, and he every Christmas there's presents there, and it was so good. I'm like, I love this guy, I love this actor, I'm in for this. And then from that moment on, I was in to the movie. And once you're in, you're in. I think that part of the issue is that sometimes the critics can't see beyond this is Chris Evans and The Rock, and that's all it's good. But and honestly, The Rock is not great. The Rock is as bland as he can get. Like, he's just, does the exact same thing.
Does he raise one eyebrow at some point?
Oh yeah, he does. He does.
I think though as well, because if you've heard the reviews and they're bad, and then you go in expecting a bad film, actually the film can seem better because of that. I once had, and I'm going to get a lot of stick for this because I know a lot of people love the film that I'm about to tell people I don't like. But when I went to the cinema many, many moons ago with a friend of mine to watch A Knight's Tale.
Oh, yeah.
The Heath Ledger film. And I went with my friend Morag, and we came out of the cinema and we had wildly different experiences because I hated every second of it. Not every second of it. Paul Bettany was great and Alan Tudyk was in it. But I did not like the use of the music, which I know a lot of people love. I was like, this is so anachronistic. I hate it. And I just wasn't into it at all. And I came out and I was like, that is a terrible film. And Morag came out and went, that was not nearly as bad as I expected. Because it had really bad reviews and she'd read the reviews and I hadn't. So she was going in expecting a bad film and was like, oh, it's fine. And I was going in expecting a good film. And I was like, I hate this.
But you also, if you don't like the central premise of the movie, you're not going to like the movie, right? So for you, if you don't like them using the modern songs in the context of medieval England, then, I mean, sorry, you're not going to like it. I mean, it's the same thing for Moulin Rouge, right? That was the same gimmick.
Yeah, but I feel like I remember that there's a point in which they dance to "We Will Rock You" or something in A Knight's Tale, and I feel like you might have heard electric guitars.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, no. In Moulin Rouge, they took music and they put it in the right era. Like, there were the right instruments and there was the right, vibe to it. They rewrote those songs. And I don't mind if you want to put We Will Rock You into that and play it on some loops. I am down. I would have been thrilled by that. But it was the fact that they didn't do that. They didn't make the music fit the setting. And so I was just like...
Well, I've since learned that there's a term for this type of musical, and it's called a jukebox musical, when it's like a movie that contains existing songs. And there's a lot of animated movies that do this as well. Like, what's the one? Sing.
Oh yes, absolutely. And the thing is that I don't even consider things like, I mean, I haven't seen Sing, so maybe I shouldn't speak on it. But things like that, where it's like a concert, like Walk the Line. I don't consider Walk the Line a musical. I'm a musical theatre performer. I trained in it. I went to drama school and trained in it. I have fully jazz hands up. And I think those kind of musicals are not musicals, because if you don't burst into song in the middle of the scene to explain something about your character, then I don't consider it to be a musical. Mamma Mia is a jukebox musical insofar as it's using pre-existing songs, but they still turned it into a musical like they did with the Alanis Morissette musical. And but I always think if it's just like, if the setting of all the songs is a concert, I don't consider that to be a musical. So like Moulin Rouge is a musical because they just burst into song. I love Moulin Rouge. I think it's just brilliant.
I think it's really good.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is I noticed it. It's behind your head right now, I think, and I noticed it in one. Oh yay! I've got the Red Curtain trilogy box set. Yeah,
nice, actually. So the thrift store, it's got the whole thing happening here.
I think that's the one I have because I've got Moulin Rouge as well.
I want to watch this movie. Opening this up makes me want to watch this movie.
Oh, everything! Yeah, I want to watch Moulin Rouge. I'm desperately trying to get my mum to watch it because I got her to watch Strictly Ballroom, and And so that was fun. And Romeo and Juliet is just perfect.
What's behind you that you're looking at?
Sorry?
Behind me that you were looking at?
My original favorite Christmas film, Santa Claus the movie.
Oh, yes. I'm going to be posting a video about this one today because I watched this.
Consent. Don't. Maybe I won't watch it.
No, I like this movie. I heard it's really
that's
good.
all right.
I think, why do people not like it? Is this like considered a bad movie?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because maybe people didn't watch it when they were like 7 in the 80s and just go, it was so brilliant. We quote that daily.
What do you say from it?
Me and my mum, the one we quote, we have 2 things that we quote constantly. One of them is fine and dandy, dandy and fine.
Yeah.
All the time. And the other one is just the point where John Lithgow is like, Patch is explaining to him like how much money he can make. He's like, I just don't know why, but that makes me laugh. And also, the other reason I love that film is because he creates Christmas 2 on March the 25th, and that's my birthday.
Oh, that's nice. Look at that.
So as a kid, I was like, I'm famous.
I love this movie when I was a kid. To me, this is like, it created like my mental image of Santa's workshop is from this movie because it's just such a perfect, and it really does. Like, I love the first hour of this. That it just kind of tells the Santa story and how he became like from the simple guy who was giving wooden toys to kids to this guy who delivers toys to kids around the world. That whole part was awesome. And then the 80s-ness of it, the 80s-ness of the central, like, John Lithgow character. He's so evil. The part where he's like, that it goes into parody because he's like, why are you making me sit there and say all the time? Like, he just says that, like, it's so funny. He is so funny. And the little kids are good too. Those 2 little kids that are kind of the central characters in this, the little homeless kid, and then the rich kid, like the niece of John Lithgow. We find out that was a big twist in the movie. We find out that that's her uncle. Oh my God.
And I love, like the score is fantastic. And like, even Mum and I went out to like one of the National Trust houses near us to see their Christmas display. And they had all these wooden stars. And look at him. He's just fabulous. And the reindeer are so cute. The Henson puppets. Oh my God.
Oh, good. Very, very well done.
And they had these wooden stars that we met the woman whose husband had made them, and they were all over the place. He'd made thousands of them. And I said, and she went, and then like a 93-year-old man painted them. And I just said to my mum, they look like they were painted with an elf's beard. Like, that film is just so ingrained into my head. But interesting that we've gone from Moulin Rouge to that, because I made a TikTok years ago about 2 of my favourite shots in film are the similar shots in Moulin Rouge, and that when Satine makes her first entrance in Moulin Rouge and she's coming down on that trapeze, all the men turn, and they're black because they're all wearing white-tied tails, so they're wearing the black tail and then the white shirt fronts. So as they all turn and look at her. You get this change from black to white. And I think, like, I gasped when I first saw it. I think it's such a beautiful shot. In the Santa Claus the movie, there's that point where they're waiting for, like, the star to come to the right part, and then you see the little bits of snow coming through, and and they all look up, and I was like, oh, it's the same shot. All the elves looking up through this hole in the roof is the same as all those men watching Satine come down for her performance. And I was like, maybe that's why I loved it so much.
Maybe. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I've been mainly watching Deadwood.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on like episode 9 of season 3, so I'm getting to the denouement of Deadwood. When I think everyone's just going to try and kill everyone else, I feel like that's what it's leading up to. And Wyatt Earp has just arrived. Because you see these people, like Wild Bill Hickok was in it, and Calamity Jane's in it, who I know because I was in Calamity Jane the musical when I was at university. And so Wyatt Earp has just arrived, and I was like, I know nothing about Wyatt Earp except for, was he played by Kevin Costner?
And Kurt, what's his name? Kurt Russell. Thank you.
Has he all done that as well?
That's still the same story. There were two movies that came out around the same time, Wyatt Earp and what was the one with Kurt Russell and how was it called? With Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday?
Tombstone,
that's it. Thank you. Yes. I watched that recently, like a few months ago. It's very, very good. And
yeah, I think that's why I knew the name. Yeah, because I haven't seen it, and I didn't know that was a Wyatt Earp story. It's like when Heath Ledger did a oh my god, he did a film about some outback, Wild West sort of guy, and someone else like a similar movie came out at exactly the same time, and we had this weird period where Ants and Bugs came out the same year, and you were like, why are all these double movies happening?
It happened all through the 90s. Armageddon and Deep Impact. There's Volcano and Dante's Peak. There's always like twin. I was thinking about doing a series on them, actually, twin movies, and then
do because it's a really interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
So that I can't remember. I can't remember what the Heath Ledger film was. I just remember Orlando Bloom was in it as well, so I think that was the only reason I was interested in it at the time.
Oh.
So yeah, all right. Well, can we do next? It's still not. I have no idea how many days it is till Christmas, but it's still
no. It's not next Sunday. Is the 22nd, so we can still do it. I'm free. So yeah, let's do next Sunday. And Christmas is on a weekday this year, so I'm probably not going to be busy on Sundays. So
we should be able to just keep going. And it's funny because, of course, on Blue Sky, where I am now, because of the mass exodus from Twitter, so I'm over on Blue Sky now.
I'll let you on Blue Sky.
And so we have somebody is doing a countdown of when 911 is coming back. And it's nice. I mean, it's terrible because it's like 83 days. And I was like, I would be missing it so much more if I didn't have this. So I'm really glad that because I get to really enjoy Pan Am, and I get to count the weeks down in a much better way. So thank you. So this, you can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or I don't know anything about that. Anywhere that you can find a podcast, you can find us. The Transatlantic Watch Party. And this just got very exciting because the cat has arrived.
I think she must be looking for food. Are you looking for food? Is that what you come to say hi? She's like, I really wish you weren't holding me right now. She does not like me help.
Who is this, Dan? Who is this?
Dottie? Yeah.
Dottie, you are perfection. Oh my God, look at that outfit. Hi.
It's great for the audio listeners. They're gonna love this part. Anyway.
Yeah. That's gonna be a great. I might have to take that clip and just put it on TikTok so that people get to see your cat. Sometimes we hear your cat in your videos, but I don't think I've ever seen her.
That's not the other one. She's not. She's very quiet. She doesn't meow. The other one meowed.
Okay. She would do all right in The Quiet Place, and the other one would not.
We had that conversation. My kids and I had that conversation after we saw The Quiet Place, the new one in the theater. We went to see that. And actually, we're in the theater, and I said to listeners, my kid, Casper would not survive. No.
Casper killed immediately.
Yeah, I know.
All right, well, give Casper my love anyway, even though we didn't see him. And I will see you next week when you get to host live, so that'll be fun.